There are countless moments in history, points in time, where one can point from where everything evolved. For Idaho, that point is set in stone in the southwestern part of the state, known as the initial point.
So the initial point is the place on the map where the principal meridian and the baseline meet.
The principal meridian, the main line going north and south, and the baseline goes east and west. Terms that may not matter much to you, but they are critical to the public land survey system.
Which is how all of the land in the American West was divided and cut up and then made available from 1785 through most of the 20th century.
Here's the Cliff Notes. The Land Ordinance of 1785 set this survey strategy in motion as a moneymaker for the federal government. Points were picked and the land was laid out in 160-acre plots as the United States spread westward. Nearly a century later, it was Idaho Territory's turn. So President Andrew Johnson appointed Lafayette Carty as Idaho's first general surveyor in 1866.
And the very first step in that process was establishing the initial point.
The instructions given by the General Land Office, it had to be a high spot or at the confluence of two streams. Carty went high and chose this volcanic bump 20 miles outside of Boise.
And it was established on April 19th, 1867.
That wasn't the only significance of this spot.
So the principal meridian had to radiate north to cover the entire panhandle, and the baseline had to radiate east and west to encompass the entire southern portion of the territory. Any survey that happened across the territory of Idaho would radiate out from that point on the landscape.
Seems simple enough until you realize how they did it.
They literally were working with chains and links, and they were literally out on the landscape walking with these chains.
Imagine walking a straight line, measuring around mountains and into canyons and across rivers, 66 feet at a time.
Wow. How long did that take?
Decades. There were sections of the state that were still being surveyed and resurveyed well into the late 20th century.
Whether it's on a map or in person, you can actually see how it all lays out from initial point.
Anyone lives on or is familiar with Meridian Road, that is the principal meridian in the state of Idaho.
Is that why it's called Meridian?
Correct.
Was it perfectly plotted? Not always. During a dedication of Initial Point for Idaho's Territorial Centennial Celebration in 1963, organizers pointed out that wasn't on purpose.
Let's be tolerant of these old boys who did the pioneer work for us. I do not say that there are no fraudulent surveys, but generally, we find that the errors are honest mistakes made by honest men. Idaho is especially fortunate in this regard because few of her surveys were made by this method.
But she was made from this point, the importance of which should be anything but blunted.
Because without that moment in time, we wouldn't have homesteads, we wouldn't have had, the mining claims. That set in motion the development of the territory, which of course set in motion the economic development, the arrival of people of different cultures and ethnicities and experiences and backgrounds, which made this territory and then later the state what it is today.